All right. Sean Leary is here. He is the host of the No Credentials podcast. He's a stand-up comedian. He's a Michelob Ultra aficionado. As I've come to know him, he's at Sean Leary Bits as well on Instagram. Sean, we're going to talk a little draft. Now, by the time people hear this, the draft may have already happened. So this is going to be a hopes and dreams bit of back and forth conversation. So let me start with you here. Minnesota fan, what was your instant reaction to the Kirk Cousins trade?
Excitement. Technically he went to Atlanta as a free agent, so we didn't get anybody back for him, which kind of
Yeah.
sucks. It'd been nice to maybe get a player, but he's not the guy to win a chip.
Yeah.
And we saw that a couple of years ago in the playoffs when it was fourth down and 8, and he threw a 3-yard out route. Like that's just, you're not. And that's when, I think we all, as Vikings fans, or majority collectively had that just, this is not the guy. And then, this past year, he was, doing better in the Kevin O'Connell system. They beat San Francisco. They stringed together a few things, but, he hurts his Achilles on basically a non-contact. That's a sign of aging. It's just time. Atlanta overpaid. Atlanta's probably just going to go, 9-8, 10-7, and lose in the first round. So that's what they're getting. But as a Vikings fan, relief was what I was feeling when Kirk Cousins decided to go to Hotlanta.
Mm. I always think, like, say, if you and I lived in Minnesota, I feel like we would hear a nickname for that game where he throws the fourth down pass short. I feel like,
Yeah,
oh, was that the 4th and 8 game? Like, I
yeah,
feel like it would be talked about way more if we were of the region. And I always think of quarterbacks from a fan base standpoint is this is the person, this is your significant other. This is who you're
yeah.
dating as a fan. And that fourth and short pass was technically, I guess, fine. He threw a check down. He gave his receiver a shot, but there was no way it was going to get
No.
a first down. So, like, that's kind of like when you're dating someone and they do something and you're like, okay, this is not the mother of my children. And then you say, like, okay, am I 2 months away? Am I 6 months away? Am I breaking up with this person tomorrow? I feel like that was the play for Minnesota fans. Be like, all right, we need to start looking.
Well, I feel like I knew a couple years prior. I just have
Mm,
never really, what for me, maybe even more telling of when it was and when that moment was pretty much right after he got here, and a team that was at the brink of the Super Bowl just wasn't even competitive.
mhm.
Didn't even make the playoffs. I think they finished 8-7-1, and off a 13-3 season. I know it's a up and down, ebbs and flow league, but it just never really got any better.
Yeah,
I
that
know,
one Buffalo win in Buffalo
yeah,
like
like
tided the fan base over, but it
basically,
was a
like,
band aid.
and it's such a fan base that's just fine with mediocrity. Like you were saying that if we lived there, we would, have a nickname for it. If we lived there, we would be two of the only people that actually voice how they feel. It's a lot of
Mm,
passive aggressive, blah, blah, blah. But the reason they're so mediocre is because they don't demand more. Ownership knows that they can just kind of put a 10-win team out there, make it to the playoffs, sell jerseys, sell tickets. That's going to keep the area happy. And sadly, the fan base is who allows that to be the status quo. And
hmm
that's like at least 20 of the markets in the NFL right now where I truly don't think they're all in. They're all in. We're going
Yeah.
all in. They're not. And so I think Vikings, maybe for the first time ever this year, are actually trying to go all in and actually get a franchise quarterback, keep the general manager, coach, quarterback, offensive system on the turf, tough division for 10 years. And they've
hmm
never really done that. And it didn't feel like they were doing that with Kirk. That just kind of felt like, oh, well, we were at the doorstep for the Super Bowl. Let's try and get this veteran. When in reality, he just was never really that good in Washington. He's solid,
hmm
13th, 14th best quarterback, but it was basically right away with Kirk. And now I think they have the chance to turn the page, hopefully trade up to number 3, draft Drake May if they can get the Kraft family to budge.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Minnesota in the draft. Where are you on this? Minnesota try and draft a QB, or are they going to trade for one? It seems like you're on the sense that they need to trade up.
Yes, they have to go up to number 3. I don't think Washington's going to trade out of number 2. They love Jaden Daniels, even though I don't think he likes them that much. He likes your boy over in Vegas. So that could get juicy, but I don't think the Raiders have enough to get it, to pull it off.
Right.
So
Raiders are drafting at 13. It's going to take a lot to get
they'd
into.
have to probably, honestly, they'd probably have to trade like Max Crosby, and I don't even think that's worth it. So I think the Vikings need to try and get, Kevin O'Connell was drafted by the Patriots. He's got a relationship with the Patriots organization. They gave him a shot. They talk. He's close with the Crafts. So I think if there is one team that's going to have good communication there, it is, possibly the Vikings. And they have the most to offer to go up to 3. I know that there's talk of the Giants wanting to go up to 3 to get Drake May, but that doesn't make any sense to me because Brian Daboll is coaching basically for his job this year, and Drake May is a project. So I actually think that might be the Patriots leaking, because I think the Patriots and the Giants are kind of pseudo always going to be connected because of Kraft hiring from there. It was Parcells, and then it was Belichick. He always loved what the Giants system was and how the Giants were under Parcells. So I think the Patriots might be leaking that the Giants are also interested to try to get the Vikings to maybe throw in Justin Jefferson, throw in a first round pick in 2025 or whatever. So I think they package the 2 first round picks they have. And then if they got to get a first round pick next year too, to go up to 3, the Patriots need so much help. They're terrible. Outside of Carolina, they're the worst team in the league by far. They got nobody. They need more than Drake May to right the ship there. And I don't think they like that type of quarterback that's raw. Gerard Mayo's a defensive coach. He wants a Jacoby Brissett. He wants we got to get the ball out, run the ball. Drake May is somebody that needs offensive coach that's going to fine-tune him, get him to do the little checkdowns because he's got a huge arm and he's a big kid. And they always talk about this stuff at the draft. This is what I think is so funny, is like how far into the psychology they go. They're like, he's the youngest of 4 boys, so he was always fighting at the table for the chicken wing. He's got the fight in it.
Right.
I don't want the oldest kid who was coddled. I want the younger kid who was fighting for that chicken wing. All right.
Right. I listened to a podcast talking about the difference between inexperienced and raw. I'm like, I don't know what these adjectives are anymore.
So is raw somebody whose footwork isn't really that good and he doesn't know how to read a defense and maybe he doesn't have the best mechanics, but boy, can he sling it a country mile.
Right.
Inexperience is somebody who's got it all. He just needs to play.
Yeah, we talked about this a little before we started. Like, this is what is excited me about the draft. Because in all of 48 hours, I'm checking ESPN nonstop, looking for news, headlines. Like, this is really the white collar season for the NFL because it's all phone calls. It's all GMs. Who's going to trade up? Who's going to trade down? And like last year we saw it, like we had trades during the draft where Houston got like 2 out of the first 5 picks. And it's super exciting to it all. And then like I'm looking it up and there's actually all these events you can go to at the draft, which is in Detroit now. It looks like a fun time.
Yeah.
And maybe we're at the precipice of like the draft being kind of like a mini Super Bowl for the off season.
Already there. Like, I mean,
it might be.
Last year was humongo, and there could be some draft night trades too, obviously, because New England's saying that they're not going to make a move really until they know for a fact that the Commanders take Jaden Daniels. Because it sounds like the Patriots love Jaden Daniels, and then if, say, somebody trades, like hypothetical, somebody trades up to 2 and takes Drake May, then New England would not trade with Minnesota. They would then take Daniels at 3. So there are some worlds where the Vikings kind of get screwed here. And I also think they ultimately screw themselves if they trade up and then take J.J. McCarthy, because I don't think he's 2 first-round picks worthy. He's just not.
Let me ask you this.
What do you got?
So we're thinking Chicago's going to take Caleb Williams first. Number one, as a Vikings fan in that division, how worried would you be about Caleb Williams in his rookie season with Chicago.
Very,
You
very.
like him, so you like
Yeah,
this
I think
Caleb Williams.
when I watched him for the first time in college, I was like, oh my God, that's an NFL. This guy is an NFL player. How are they
Mhm.
letting him? I was like, you put him, he's better than Kirk Cousins. He's like the seventh best quarterback in the league. And
Yeah.
I think he's going to go even harder than CJ Stroud. Like CJ Stroud, weeks 1 and 2 and 3 was kind of, and then it was just, oh, this guy gets it. I think Caleb's going to plug in right away and be leading the offense, audibling. They're going to be very good. And Las Vegas already is telling you that they think they're going to be really competitive. They're like the 13th, 14th, 15th best odds to win the Super Bowl. So they
Hmm.
got them right there with Jacksonville, who is right up at the top of the division. They got them right around that they got better odds than other division winners across the league. They got just incredible odds in terms of where they've been. They've been picking first the last 2 seasons, and they might be a 10-win team, especially with Montez Sweat kind of taking over the defense and being the new Roquan Smith type leader, face of the defensive franchise. You've got Eberflus, who is a defensive guy. So if you can
Yeah.
get even anything out of the offense, I think they're going to be good because I think Minnesota obviously is going to take just a little bit of a step back in terms of it's either Darnold, who's not a good NFL quarterback, and Vegas is
Yeah.
telling you that too. The Vikings have some of the worst odds. That's what I always
Hmm.
look to of
Okay.
like who they actually think is going to be bad. Sometimes they miss on a couple of those. Like last year, they were way off on the Rams. I think
Hmm.
a bunch of people who actually know football made a ton of money on the Rams because they had like the fourth worst odds in the NFL last year, and they have Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. It never made sense. It
Yeah.
was the easiest like playoff lock at like 7.5 over and under of the whole league. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's where I look at with the Bears of like Vegas says they're going to be good. I just saw Ron Rivera on a podcast talking about how he just thinks Caleb's instantly going to be that good. And when somebody
Hmm.
who's obviously hasn't been able to get a good quarterback since Cam Newton season, it's like I just see it. Like, sometimes I just talk about the eye test. And when I watched some of his games live, like this Colorado game, I actually watched, and I don't like college football. And I sat down one Saturday and was buying into the hype and watched Colorado and USC, and I'm just like, he's doing the just boom, like it was backyard, and like that
Totally. Yeah.
stuff you
He looks
can't.
like a mini Mahomes. He
Yeah,
really,
that's the
really
stuff
does.
you can't
He at
find.
least
Like
has
you
the
can
skill set.
Yeah, you can teach Kirk to throw a 6 yard out. Whoa, precision. Whoa, accuracy. Look at me. I'm a robot. Blah, 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 blah. When Caleb doesn't get sacked, he's Mahomes. Like, I just think he's going to be instantly very good, fearless. Every game's going to be close. You know what I mean? Where it's like there's no real blowouts because the team's not bad.
Yeah.
You remember, this is Carolina's pick. The Bears went 7-10.
Right.
They've
Hmm.
been reasonably competitive for about a year and a half now.
Hmm.
And if
In
you
a decent
remember,
division too.
yeah, and if you remember correctly, they kicked the crap out of San Francisco last year. Granted, I know they had Trey Lance at the time, but hey, fun times. Or that might have been 2 years ago. I can't remember, but they play hard. The
Yeah.
Bears are always a tough team to beat, especially in Chicago, especially if they're still alive.
True. Yeah, the Bears say Caleb Williams, Mahomes. You mentioned Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, I'd put Philip Rivers in this category too from back in the day. They have Philip Rivers syndrome where it looks like it's painful to throw a ball.
Mm.
And Caleb Williams, Mahomes, Herbert, it
It
looks
looks like,
so effortless.
oh.
They're just like, I feel like Kirk Cousins' shoulder pads are too big or
No,
something.
it's because he's
Can't, it looks
it's
difficult
his
to throw the
build.
ball.
He's not. I don't know how to explain it. He's skinny, but he's not. It's hard. It's how I feel about Zach Wilson. When I see Zach Wilson, I go, that is a high schooler, and it's not his face. I'm telling you, when I see him out on the field, I feel that's the smallest guy out there. It's a
Yeah.
Bryce Young, it's a Kyler Murray, and I go,
Yeah.
you
Bryce Young
can't
last year looked
you
tiny.
cannot have that.
Hmm.
And I don't
Yeah.
and
Size
like
is,
they say
yeah,
that Zach
something.
Wilson is 6'2". I don't They say he's like 6'2", 210 or whatever, and I'm like, where?
Hmm.
Because when I saw him next to Rodgers, he was so much smaller, and that's supposed to be what Rodgers is.
Right.
So
Hmm.
I think there's been something with the because Zach Wilson came out during the COVID year. So granted, things were gonna be skewed, but like I just ever never once saw him on a field where he looked like I didn't go, is this middle school? Is this it never felt like where
Yeah.
he was supposed to be. And we
Hmm.
saw that in the NFL. He looked scared. He played scared. He played small.
It was on the Jets, for Christ's sake. That's
Yeah,
already a
but he
reason to
never
be
had like a
scared.
Mahomes moment where you're like, look at his arm. And that's why they drafted him number 2. And that's where you got like
Yeah.
Chris Sims rating him ahead of Trevor Lawrence. I'm just like, what did I miss here?
Hmm. Yeah. And also, like, we always get enamored with the highlight reels. Like, he came from BYU.
Exactly. Same with like
Can,
Carson Wentz and Trey Lance. I'm like, they
yeah.
played at North Dakota
Yeah.
State.
That's a good point.
And I know Carson Wentz had a little bit of success, but it was a flash in the pan. It was a schedule
Yeah.
game.
The Carson Wentz stories, it's just like, I almost feel like there needs to be an investigation. Like, this guy was the leading MVP of the league, and then he got injured,
I'm
and he
telling
never
you,
came back. Like,
I think
it
one
was
thing
weird.
that goes under the radar about the NFL, and it's not something that you can do anything about. It's all just algorithm, computer, how you did the year before, TV ratings, blah, blah, blah. But the schedule. And if you go back and look at the 2017 schedule for the Eagles that year when he was the MVP frontrunner, and similar to the Eagles a couple years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, if you get it to fall right, you can win a ton of games. If you get last place the year before, you then play a last place schedule the next season.
Mhm.
So both of those seasons, the Eagles came in with, oh wow, we're going to have a much easier schedule. You end up playing a bunch of other last place teams. Okay.
Mhm.
And then if you can get it to fall right where you play another conference's worst division, and then you play your own conference's worst division, and then your division is terrible, you can stack wins. And if you look at the 2017 Eagles, oof, that division, the NFC East was horrible. The NFC was down. Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone. The top quarterbacks in the
Yeah.
NFC were like Nick Foles, Case Keenum, and then you can get to 13 wins. That's just sometimes like, especially if your back half schedule is a bunch of teams that are already eliminated or are trying to position themselves for a better draft pick. That's why a lot of times it can really shake out. Like last year, the Niners had the 1 seed
Mhm.
sewn up 10 games into the season.
Right.
So I just think
Yeah.
that's what happened with Carson Wentz because we never saw it again. Never
Never.
saw it again.
Never. He
I'm telling
looked
you, they
like a
were
good.
playing Hugh Jackson's Browns. They were playing a last place Trevor Simeon Bronco. Like the schedule that team in
Trevor Simeon. Right.
2017, oh my God, they played like the Raiders were awful that year. No offense.
Hmm.
That was the Chiefs with Alex Smith, and that was one of the games the Eagles lost. When they
Yeah.
actually played anybody that year in 2017, they lost.
Yeah. Somehow they go on the playoff run. I think
Oh,
the opposite of Kirk Cousins is Carson Wentz looked like a good quarterback.
yes.
Like he looked
Yeah.
strong and he had the long legs and he's
Yep.
looks good. And
Couldn't hit
then
a freaking dart.
and it took us a year and a half to really figure it out. A couple of hypotheticals for you.
Let's do
I
it.
want to ask you about. Okay, what would it take me to talk you into trading for Justin Herbert?
Well, that's what I've been trying to do.
You like it. You
Yeah,
you
that's
you
what I
want to go
think.
for this.
I think the Vikings, because then you can have Harbaugh just draft JJ McCarthy,
Mhm.
like trade trade the Chargers your first or your 2 first round picks and whatever else it'll take to get them right. So then
Yeah.
the Chargers can come around and use the 11. They still have the 5th round, the 5th overall pick that they could use on McCarthy, or
Yep.
they could take their offensive lineman at 5 and then take McCarthy or Bo Nix at 11 because Harbaugh wants to run the ball. So he does, but we saw what he could do with Kaepernick, a strong arm quarterback. So I
Mhm.
think the Chargers are going to be very good. Maybe not
Yeah.
instantly, but Harbaugh gets his teams. They're going to be a 10. They're going to hover around 10 wins. They're going
Mhm.
to be right in the mix. And if Herbert finally clicks alpha mode, it could be trouble. But A, Vikings trade the house and get Herbert. B, Vikings trade up to number 3 and get Drake May.
Mhm.
Anything else I don't want. Keep the 11th and 23rd and draft guys. And then
Not even,
Arnold
not
can
even
do it.
sell the
No,
house for
no
Chicago's
sell.
pick and Caleb Williams. You'd go
Well,
for Caleb.
yeah, but that ain't happening.
You would go for
Well,
that.
yeah, I'd give up a kidney for Caleb Williams. I think he's going to win Super Bowls.
Would you
I give up
rob
Kirk
Kirk Cousins'
Cousins'
new
kidney.
Atlanta house for the number one pick?
Yeah, dude.
Okay, now we're
It was going to
talking.
be legit.
Oh, okay. I thought I was gonna get some pushback on both those theories, but it seems like you'd
Dude.
be okay with them.
Oh, okay, brother.
Okay. Well, I got down as Minnesota's needs a quarterback, defensive tackle, outside guard, cornerback, and a running back. Let me give you Minnesota's rankings from last year. A little surprising, to be honest with you. Offensive rank overall, they were 10th. They
Yeah.
were 5th in passing,
Yeah, O'Connell
29th in
likes.
rushing.
Okay.
And in defensive rank, they were 16th overall, 24th in passing, 8th in rushing. So, I mean, nothing spells NFL middle class like these rankings. So
I know.
they really, like, this could be a make or break season where, like, they could bump it up to 5th in the league overall offense, top 10 defense. And like, that's a playoff run if they improve upon that. So, I mean, this is a really, really important draft for Minnesota, I think. And then this is my last question. Say everything works out for you in the draft. Say all the commentators, all the talkings are like, Minnesota won the draft. How long do you think that would last? Would that last to the preseason, to week 1, or all the way until the team's first loss in the regular season? Like, how high are we going to be off of this draft?
Well, I just think it's a draft for the future for Minnesota because I don't think anybody's expecting anything this year. So I would
Mhm.
say it would take until Thanksgiving of the following season to know if Drake May's kind of the guy or not. So if in my opinion, if they quote unquote won the draft, that would mean they didn't have to give up too much. They were able to move up and they got the franchise quarterback that is not JJ McCarthy. So I would say that would take until we officially know that he's either a bust or not. So I would say Thanksgiving of next season because you
Mhm.
usually
Wow.
should be good to know. Like, I kind of just feel like that would be then because unless he gets hurt or something in the preseason type thing, but I think
Mhm.
they'd be pretty optimistic because the Minnesota Vikings have never truly had like that go-to franchise quarterback for over 5 seasons. Dante Culpepper was like the closest thing to
Yeah.
that.
The Culpepper
And
and Cunningham were a thing for
yeah,
a little bit.
but that was kind of a flash in the pan, kind of more again lucky with the schedule,
Right.
lucky with the conference
Little
was what
surprised that Cunningham
yeah.
had what he had
You,
when he started
you know,
playing.
they were never better than the Eagles. They were never better than the Packers. They just couldn't really ever get over the hump. And I feel like with O'Connell, kind of the Midwest McVay, we're aggressive. We like to throw the ball, but we also like play action. We got to have an athletic quarterback. Um, I just think this is the time. So in order to win the draft, you got to go get the big stud.
One more thing
Sure.
I want to ask you about this draft, which is happening tomorrow. All right, I got all the events that are happening at the draft tomorrow. Very fan friendly draft in Detroit tomorrow. I'm going to read you them, and I want you to tell me which one you absolutely would want to go to.
Okay.
Are you ready for this? Here's what
Yeah.
you can do at the draft tomorrow as a fan. You can do the 40-yard dash presented by Rocket Mortgage. You can do the vertical jump. You can throw a Hail Mary. You can go to the autograph stage presented by Panini. You can go to the Bud Light backyard bar.
Ooh.
You can look like a pro
Definitely
where
go
you
there.
get in the mold of an NFL uniform and take a picture. Or you can go to Taste of Detroit and you got about 75 different restaurants you can eat from.
All right. I'm definitely going to the backyard Bud Light beer garden. And I'm
Hmm.
definitely hitting that last thing with the food vendors. And I'm also going to do Hail Mary because during the
Yeah.
pandemic, I had a bunch of listeners telling me that I couldn't throw a ball 50 yards, and I can.
Oh. Oh, you can? So you
Yes,
did
it's
it?
on
Or you just said you
video.
can?
No, I got it. I had to prove all the haters wrong.
Huh.
No credentials with Sean Larry.
Oh, okay. And you did it. You threw it 50
Yeah,
yards,
I think it ended up going.
regulation ball.
Yep, we ordered one.
Oh,
It went. I think it went like 52 yards, 53 yards.
really? Well, that's not
Yeah, I didn't
bad.
even like feel good about it. It came out. It didn't come out great.
Hmm.
I was watching a few videos on how to enhance my distance, and I think that kind of got into my head a little bit.
Yeah. I've always said that we need a, almost a combine for current players before the season. So I know which current quarterback threw the ball the furthest,
Yep.
what their 40-yard dash time is.
That's a good idea.
And in that way, we could bring up that stat throughout the regular season. It's like, well, Aaron Rodgers has the longest ball of all the quarterbacks.
Right, right.
And then we could just sort of know who's got what in the tank. I just think that would be fun to know. And I also think, similar to baseball, like we need like a speed count during the game. Like when Mahomes throws a bullet to Kelsey over the middle.
Yeah.
Like, what about a speed gun? Like, how fast was that
do that
ball?
with the runners. Like when Tyreek Hill hits 27 miles or whatever he does, they put it up on the screen. I think that would be cool for the throws.
Yeah, like come on, NFL. Like we're adding technology every year.
That costs money, and they don't like to spend money.
Come on, NFL. NFL don't want to spend money. That's not the NFL I know. Every year they make us buy pink cleats for October. Come on, NFL. Well, the draft is tomorrow. Sean Leary, No Credentials is his podcast. I'm a loyal listener of it. I personally liked the episode where you wanted to abolish all penalties in the middle of the season. I was like, what is Sean talking about?
Just get rid of them, dude.
Sean wants anarchy in the NFL.
Get rid of them. Get rid of penalties.
Sean, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you so much. As to your Raiders, we'll see what happens, baby.
Oh, Sean, I'm very nervous. I don't know what to do. I might blow in a call or two.
Do it.
Thanks, buddy. All right, joining me for this segment, you know him, you love him. He's the regular co-host of the Sunday Night Talk. Omar Carmona joins me. The draft is going on. It's still wrapping up round one as we speak. I forgot how long the actual draft is. It's still going.
It's so drawn out. It's now over the 3 days. It's a lot. It's a lot to go through.
Yeah, it really is. Like I flipped it on and I'm like, all right, so we're gonna like an hour. It takes like an hour for round one, and then we wrap it up and we'll discuss. This is gonna go all night. And then let's just talk about the draft first. It's in Detroit. It's like, think about how far the draft has come just in our lifetimes. Remember when it was like in the conference room of like a Marriott and they all had little lucite tables? And now it's like Coachella. It's in this big outdoor venue and people are cheering and
now it's traveling. They're picking different venues like the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I'm kind of wondering, like, is there anything more we can do with the draft? Because it really seems like this is the birth of maybe something of which it will become. Like, can we make this a fun festival? Can we put all the nominees or all the potential draftees in the same place? What do you think, just as a television show in general? Do you think you would like to see any changes in the draft itself?
I like it when they bring, I think Goodell should be there maybe like for the first few picks, but I do kind of like bringing back the guys, let's say a Terry Bradshaw to do announce a Pittsburgh Steelers pick,
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Randy Moss calling up a Viking. I think that would be great.
Yeah, something to endear the fan base to each pick, because right now, as it goes, Goodell has gotten booed around the 27 times for each pick, and Goodell is essentially like the high school principal. Like, you just cannot be a fan of your high school principal. You got to boo him, and he doesn't help himself any because he's kind of stiff up there. He reads a little weird.
This evening, he looked a little old to me.
Yeah, well, he just had back surgery. Did you hear that?
Back surgery, and these guys are lifting him up like a rag doll. They need to stop that.
It's almost like they said, like, all right, Goodell just had back surgery, so when you go up there, be a little careful with him, okay? And what's the first thing the outside linebacker does? Picks him up.
It's ridiculous.
This draft is, like maybe a testament to the success of Goodell's back surgery. How about that? He's like, hey, look at me. I had back surgery, and these guys are picking me up over their shoulders, and I'm okay.
Right.
How about the broadcast itself? I don't know if you caught the intro to the broadcast with Goodell doing a thing with Eminem. It reminded me of a Saturday Night Live cold open where the audience doesn't quite know where the joke is, and it's a little stiff. I don't know if Goodell in a scripted piece was the right call. Did that work for you?
Nah, it did not work for me.
No, me neither. I was like, what? Eminem didn't work for me. Like Eminem looks like he doesn't want to be there. A little odd of a start. And then they had the Detroit players.
It's strange.
Yeah. The Detroit players on stage didn't really get it for me either. Like they all had a chance to say one thing, and it seemed like they made it up as they went up there. That was
I just like seeing the old schoolers, you know?
Yeah, we had Barry Sanders. I thought like this is going to be good, but he really didn't say anything or have a joke or anything.
But I am glad Detroit's getting some attention. You know, and they had a great, Dan Campbell's really turned things around in Detroit, and so I think it's great that that's a football town that's getting, it's definitely a change for them, success.
Yeah, I mean, this has really been a great 12 months for Detroit, going from the playoffs, how it ended, great season. They get a draft. We get to see beautiful Detroit for 3 hours. I don't know when they picked the city of Detroit to do this, but Detroit is really, really looking great. The players introed it. They got their pick. Their city looks awesome. Detroit looked good. I thought that was a great location.
Absolutely.
Next point I like about the draft, and this attention gets mostly paid to the NBA, but it's into the NFL now, is the suits.
Right.
That some of these draftees wear. Like it's a whole thing.
Another thing, I think this is one of the better dressed classes I've seen in a while.
Oh, really? Who did you like tonight?
I like all of them have looked really, really good. I mean, I like the Joe Alt. Just was he golfing today and just came in and sat down and waited for the pick.
Yeah, I like how it's a little reflection on everybody's personality too. Like the Joe Alt, just a clean Midwestern guy in a sweater.
That Malik Neighbors looked great. First receiver. I think the second receiver taken. It was a good well-dressed draft class.
Where did you stand on that one? I think it was a quarterback. He had a green suit on, and he had colorful sunglasses. And at one point, he's just looking down, speaking angrily. I don't think he went in the top 10. That suit was pretty outrageous too. I thought it was pretty nuts.
I gotta check that. I mean, I think everyone's just talking about the Penix pick, but I don't know. That was crazy.
Surprises in the draft. Oh, wait, let me say this one thing before we do the draft itself. I also like the girlfriends. We get to see who's on all these guys' arms.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams shows up with an absolute 10, and I looked it up. I was like, oh, who's his girlfriend? Nobody knows this girl. She was a bit of a mystery. And I look her up on Instagram, private account, not that many followers, 40 overall posts. Little mystery here. I feel like we're almost not spending enough time figuring out who this woman is.
Oh, she's going to have a lot more followers by tomorrow morning.
Yeah, her account's private, so she has to accept the follower, I think. So that's probably going to change pretty soon. All right, you want to talk about the draft itself? Caleb Williams.
It's okay. If I may say about Caleb Williams, do not like him. I believe he's going to be a bust.
What don't you like? Is this a personal thing, or are you?
I have seen some emotional instability with him, and it just seems like he does everything possible just to stand out. Another thing that I saw a recording of him, walking into a field. The Bears just signed Keenan Allen from San Diego. Players are going to be there. Look ahead. Look, and this guy walks in. He's looking in the stands. It just seems it's more about him than anyone else, and I just don't think that's going to translate well in Chicago.
So you're already on to a personal thing with him. You haven't even touched the play yet.
Right. He's talented. He's extremely talented. But there have been very talented busts in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, they did this earlier in the broadcast. They're how many quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3 throughout the draft? And you're looking at it and you're wait a second. It's a 15% hit rate on all these quarterbacks. Nobody knows.
You of all people know, Patrick. But I think Jamarcus Russell was definitely the number one prospect the year he was
Mhm.
selected. I mean, I don't think there was anybody debating that, you know?
Mhm.
But with all that talent, we just saw that it's not only about physical talent. You know, you have to be a professional. You have to, you have to buy in to the team.
Yeah, and I think that one, going back to the Jamarcus Russell, that was totally just eyes bigger than your stomach. You're like, all right, he is such a specimen. And I think there were warning signs, but he just ignored them all. A little bit of his Al Davis pulling the trigger. I mean, we drafted a kicker in the first round one year, for Christ's sake.
Al Davis is the kind of guy that says, yeah, there's concerns here, but I'm the kind of owner that's going to set them straight, and
Yeah,
it just didn't happen. I mean,
maybe there
obviously,
is, maybe there is
Al
some of
was
that.
in he was, getting old, his help wasn't that great towards the end. Um, but yeah, I just think that this guy, Caleb Williams, very talented, but I think he's trying too hard to stand out.
Well, they also drafted, the Bears had two picks in the first round. They also got him a wide receiver. So a couple of tools here.
I like that kid. That kid to me seems like the opposite. Rome, how do you pronounce this? Odaisy?
Oduze Rome. Yeah, or his first name is Rome.
Rome. Yeah, it's Rome. And he just seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. And he looked really excited to get drafted. And the guy just looks like he's ready to be a pro. And I just can't say the same for Caleb Williams.
They talked a little bit about it, and Saban too. Like, let's talk about Saban a little bit. I don't know if this is borderline elder abuse that we put some guy on a 4-hour broadcast. Poor Saban looks exhausted out there.
Oh,
but
he loved it.
But yeah, he might love it. Like, he looks tired, but he might and makeup, and his hair was orange. But he did say, like, you got to see how these guys handle that first loss. You got to see how these guys handle the big picture. Like, he made a few good points. Like, I deal with it high school to college. Now you got to see how they deal with it college to the pros. And like, they showed all the picks, and you're like, oh yeah, most of these quarterbacks will not pan out. It doesn't even matter if they're good guys or not, or talented or not. It's just such a hard position. And they may be going into organizations that are solid in the coaching, not solid in the coaching. It's such a gamble. Like, go back the 20 years. Dan Pastorini, we had Manning, the dad, we had Achilles Smith. None of these guys panned out. It's such a crapshoot.
It is. It really is, Patrick.
You really just do your best, and you hope that they can handle a rough first year. It's really, really tough.
Correct.
That being said, I think Caleb Williams everybody wanted Caleb. So you had first pick, you're going Caleb.
Absolutely. You can't. I mean, the talent's there.
Yeah, and a lot of it is this offensive coordinator. Like, how are they going to mesh? How is it going to work out? Because remember, they just came off their number one pick, Justin Fields. Didn't work out.
Which
Next
is
pick.
Because I think Justin Fields could have succeeded with these weapons that Caleb is going to have.
Yeah, I agree, because Justin Fields essentially has one pitch. He's got the crazy agility, speed, and that's it. But that one pitch is really, really good. He's shown that he's got an arm. He's shown he can run. It just has never been good for a whole season. Not yet, anyway. The other thing is, we've never seen any team having a problem moving on from their rookie quarterback pick either. Right. Happens all the time.
Mitch Trubisky is
yeah.
even in the league.
That's the other thing too. Like, you got to consider, even though like they're good talent, like what college, what division did they come from? Zach Wilson, BYU, was that really the best testing ground for their talent? The next pick was the Washington Commanders, got Jaden Daniels, another quarterback.
It's a safe pick.
LSU.
He's experienced. There's a body of work. So, and I thought he did well. So I actually like that pick.
Washington has been dancing around a quarterback for a while.
There is going to be a lot of pressure on this pick, though.
Yeah.
I think he's going to remind people of RG3.
How about the quarterback pick to the Patriots, the first non-Belichick pick? We got Drake May.
Can I say who lost the week already or lost draft already? Because
Hold on, you could go a few routes here. Let me think who you're gonna pick. Okay, I think you're gonna go Robert Kraft. Let me think. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, he lost the draft. I think that this is not the right quarterback. There's
You
been a
think
lot
they
of
should have drafted someone else like Penix or traded?
yeah. I think there are more talented quarterbacks there. Uh, I'm not. I'm just gonna say I love the Broncos drafting Bo Nix. I think that's a great pick, and I think that's a great combination. I actually think Bo Nix is more talented than May.
Yeah, yeah. The Bo Nix one was interesting. The Penix one was, I think, the biggest surprise of the
But
draft.
that's going to be the biggest story because now you have a general manager that's explaining himself to the owner in the draft room. That's just not a good look. I mean,
Right.
this guy-
Yeah, the cameras in the draft room can only hurt. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the Penix pick. I think the announcers like Herb Street, it took them like 10 minutes to really address like now they got two quarterbacks. Like, guys, this is the story. Why did Atlanta trade for Kirk Cousins or pick up Kirk Cousins in the offseason and then use their 8th pick on a rookie quarterback? Why wasn't that the first reaction?
That's such a huge investment. And if this doesn't work out, this guy will never work in the league again.
Right. There's a lot of GMs where it's like, all right, it's ride or die this year or nothing for me. It's either this or I'm coaching or I'm GM in arena ball next year. That one was really surprising. And I don't know that the announcers like Curb Street said anything about it initially. No one had Penix going to Atlanta.
I don't know. What did you see what Bill Belichick said about it? I didn't see.
No.
I see a video of him getting,
at Washington. So, it's an interesting pick, and it's interesting to look.
It's
Two good quarterbacks is
interesting pick.
Yeah, he sounds confused by it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Atlanta, the two quarterbacks can't play at the same time, right?
Right.
One of them. That was odd.
I hope they don't think they got a Cordell Stewart, Neil O'Donnell situation over there.
Right. Oh, I forgot about that. Maybe a Taysom Hill. None of these examples resulted in, really anything of sustained offense for years. So odd. We still need to let the dust settle on that one. I didn't get that one at all.
Yeah.
Next quarterback was J.J. McCarthy.
I liked it.
To Minnesota.
I know he is so polarizing. As far as there's some experts that are saying that he's going to be a big bust. There are some guys, well-respected guys, saying he's maybe the best quarterback in the draft.
Yeah. I will tell you this. My Minnesota friends who are fans didn't like it, is the initial reaction to it. I don't know if it's just he looks too much like Zach Wilson or the body. Like he look like we can't get over our own bias. If somebody looks like something, we're like, he's good. Or we say, he's bad. Like we just judge it at face value.
Right.
Quarterback, Michigan. His tape looked good. He had a great Rose Bowl.
And and I think that also says something about maybe where Justin Herbert is. I wouldn't be surprised if Harbaugh took another good look at Herbert and said, I can work with this. So I thought that was interesting because I bet Harbaugh would have considered taking his guy.
And you think it would have been JJ. According to Schefter, the Chargers said no to everything instantly about Herbert talk. So maybe he's okay.
Maybe Harbaugh looked at it and said, we can win with this guy.
Yeah. That's going to be a very interesting season.
Harbaugh would come in with the clout coming off a 15-0 national championship season. He comes into that organization and he can make a power move like that in his first year.
Yeah. Well, they draft Joe Alt, outside tackle.
And what? And to protect the quarterback.
Yeah, so they get stronger there. The Raiders pick, I'm about to speak at length with Raiders royalty some point in this segment. Do we love tight ends? That was another surprise where they said Brock Bowers, and I'm like, all right. Wait, why do we get Brock Bowers?
Here's the thing. I actually took a look at the first round draft picks that have been picked since 2000. Okay. And I can pull that list up again, but the interesting thing is that, Travis Kelce was drafted in the third round. George Kittle, I believe, in the fourth or the fifth round. Okay. I mean, you can get some quality tight ends in the later rounds. So, but I'm looking at the history of those drafted in the first round, and they're not bad tight ends. I just wouldn't say anybody blew me away as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking at his size even, and it's not impressive. And they're showing the high.
So, I'm looking at all these tight ends that have been taken, a lot of Pro Bowlers, but I wouldn't say even perennial Pro Bowlers. I'm just saying, it's just, you could have gotten something quality third, fourth round, I think.
Yeah. Well, the draft is still going, so your team is yet to pick. All right, give me your thoughts on San Francisco. Draft, trade, the future.
Like I said, I think they're going to get somebody on the O-line. And they're going to need some, every level of the defense needs about one, needs some help. They had a great defense. I'm not saying that it was a strong defense last year, but we need to add some depth.
And then secondly, if you are one of the draftees, and I'm talking like the middle, like you're projected to go somewhere in the middle, because if you're in the middle, it seems like you have a little bit of a choice. Do you want to be there and sit in one of those little like bottle service VIP booths, or would you rather be at home?
I like the home. And all these homes are so nice,
Yeah, they really are. I like them because you get to see what their houses look like, i.e. their parents' houses. And then you get to see all their crew with them too. So you'd go home. I might agree with you on that.
I'd prefer the home thing. It just seems that there's just too much. There's just a whole lot going on in New York, but I'm sure it's an experience no one will ever forget.
And what do you think you'd wear?
Oh, a classic Navy suit.
Oh, really? Tie? No tie? What's your
tie?
You go tie. And then lastly, who won the draft?
I like what the Broncos did with Bo Nix. I think he and Sean Payton is going to be a winning combination. And now the biggest question mark is, can Kyler Murray, now he's going to have, the top rookie receiver, possibly next year. And can Kyler Murray do something with that? His Harrison's Junior's dad is a Hall of Famer, and I think that his son is on that same trajectory. So you're gonna have, it's time to make some plays if you're Kyler Murray.
I just question Sean Payton. What'd you see in Zach Wilson? Why did you want him? What do you know that we don't know? Like, I don't know. I don't know about that one. One rookie quarterback, one quarterback who is not proven that. It's an odd QB roster right now, but I'm inclined to let Sean Payton cook right now. It's only his second year.
I like it. Let's let him cook.
I went with Chicago, won the draft. Caleb Williams, and they got a receiver for Caleb Williams. There's little mock-ups online of what their dome stadium's going to look like in 8 years or something. I think it was a good draft for Chicago.
For sure. I mean, I'm not sold on Caleb Williams. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're personal, though. You don't like him because of personality. You got beef.
I do.
Omar Carmona, still a long way till even the preseason, but I think the NFL has kicked off in a minor way today, and it's already some excitement. I'm pumped.
I like it.
We drafted another tight end.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, man.
Good night.